Welcome to the 2012 NFL tight end rankings numbers 1 through 15. In these shows, we use ESPN projections so we can get a good look ahead to the upcoming season. Elite tight ends. I think the number one tight end in the NFL is Saints' Jimmy Graham, who's projected 1,265 yards and 10 touchdowns in 2012. Last season, Jimmy Graham had a monster year, and now that Robert Meacham, another Saints wide receiver, is on the Chargers, that means less mouths to feed for Drew Brees, which means more catches and yards for Jimmy Graham. I think this will be better. This year will be better than last year. Number 2 is Patriots' Rob Gronkowski. In 2011, Gronk set the all-time record for touchdowns and yards for a tight end in one season. He's projected 1,191 yards and 12 touchdowns. I think this year he's a little overrated because the Patriots have signed Brandon Lloyd and other wide receivers. So that means less touches, touchdowns, and catches for Gronk. Plus, it's hard to repeat what he did last year. All-star tight ends. These are the great tight ends that you can have on your team, and your team could win a championship. Number 3 is Antonio Gates, the Chargers tight end. Last year he had a bit of a down year, but according to ESPN, he's gonna rebound. His 2012 projection is 948 yards and 8 touchdowns, making him one of the better tight ends in the NFL. Number 4. Now this is a surprise. I have Jason Witten of the Dallas Cowboys higher than any other rankings. Everyone else has him 7, 6, or 5, but I think Witten is going to have a crazy year. Last year, actually, he had over 1,000 yards. He was only the third tight end to do it in 2011. And this year, I think he's going to have over 1,000 yards again, thanks to Tony Romo, his quarterback. He's projected 962 yards and 6 touchdowns. But I think this is Witten's career year. Draft high on Witten. Number 5 is Aaron Hernandez, the Patriots' second tight end. He's projected 733 yards and 7 touchdowns. Now, last year he had over 900 yards. So you're thinking, why is he 5th if he's only projected 733 yards? But ESPN is wrong. He's going to have another 900-yard season and be a top 5 tight end. Maybe even top 3. I think draft high on him again, just like Witten. Number 6 is Vernon Davis from the San Francisco 49ers. Last year he had a bad first half, but he turned it on second half and had a great last 8 games. In 2012, he's projected 900 yards and 8 touchdowns. That sounds about right. So I think you should draft Vernon Davis, but not ahead of any of the top 5 guys. The only reason is because, unlike the top 5 guys, Davis doesn't have a great QB thrown to him. He has Alex Smith, who's a good quarterback, not a great. I would say about average. So I wouldn't draft totally high on Davis just because I don't know who would be throwing the ball to him and how good they'll be at doing that. Number 7 is Jermichael Finley. He's being overrated and overdrafted in drafts. Last season, he was very inconsistent and only at around 700 yards. This year, he's projected 833 yards and 6 touchdowns. I think the touchdowns sound about right, but the yards are too high. He's, again, not consistent, and people are rating him in the top 3. I think that's wrong. He's gonna go higher in drafts, but I would pass on Jermichael Finley. I had him last year, and I regret it, so I'm not getting him this year. Here are the very good tight ends. The guys that could be your number 1 tight end, but you wouldn't have a very good tight end. These 3 guys would be great backups. Number 8, Fred Davis. He's projected 807 yards and 5 touchdowns. Last year was a breakout year, and I think the numbers are exactly right. They sound about what he's gonna do. I think he's a good tight end. He's gonna have better people thrown to him because Robert Griffin III is now in Washington. So I would take a draft on him. Take a draft pick on him. He's good. Number 9, Jody Cook. This guy is just so talented. He's fast, he's tall, and he's projected almost 800 yards and 6 touchdowns for the Tennessee Titans. Last season, he had a bad first half, but then the second half was amazing. He was a top 10 running, the top 5 tight end in the second half of last year. He's a great tight end. I think I will get him, and he's not going very high in drafts. He's a sleeper pick. I think you can snatch him up, steal him, and he'll be a very good tight end this year. Don't be surprised if he ends up in the top 6 or 5 next season. Number 10 is a guy going on the opposite side of the scale as Cook is. Tony Gonzalez, the Falcons tight end, is looking near the end of his career. Even though he's projected 819 yards and 6 touchdowns, he can still be a very good tight end. Just don't expect what he's done earlier in his career. You might need a good backup if you have Gonzalez, just because his legs are getting worn out and old, and I don't know how he might do in one of his final years of his career. Here are the good tight ends, the guys who would be great backups but not good starters. 11, Jacob Tamey of Denver. He's reuniting with Peyton Manning. He had a great 2010 with Manning as the quarterback of the Colts, and this year he's projected about 700 yards, 6 touchdowns. Very respectable. Number 12 is Detroit's Brandon Pettigrew, who's projected 700 yards and 5 touchdowns. He has Matthew Stafford throwing to him, so I think he'll be a good sleeper pick in the late rounds. Number 13, the Eagles' Brent Selleck. He's projected just under 700 yards and 5 touchdowns. He had brights of amazingness last year, but he didn't put a full season together. This year I think he's going to have a better year, but I think next year, in 2013, is his breakout year. But he can be a sleeper pick, and draft him as a good backup. Number 14 and 15 both had disappointing 2011 campaigns. Dustin Keller, the New York Jets tight end, is projected 700 yards and 4 touchdowns. With only 4 touchdowns projected, he can't be a very good tight end in fantasy, although he's a good tight end in reality. I wouldn't really draft him unless you want a good backup. Number 15, Owen Daniels. Last year got injured and missed a lot of time, and when he came back, he wasn't good. A really bad year. But this year, he's projected 650 yards, 5 touchdowns, which would be better than last year's numbers, but don't expect much from him. The only thing he could do is be a very good backup on your team. Thanks for watching.